My name is Josh Dreller. I'm the Senior Director of Content Marketing here at Skai, and I've known Jenny now for probably 15 years. She's a dinosaur in the search age like me. I am a dinosaur. 20 years. I've been in search since 2003, and like many of you that have learned search, broad match can be kind of skeptical about broad match. And when Google started talking about this a couple of years ago and saying that it changed and we should be testing it and everything, and some of you did, some of you didn't. But certainly around that time, a couple of years ago, if you searched for articles on Broadmatch, you'd see things like "Don't use AdWords Broadmatch." You'd see "Broadmatch is not your friend." Does Broadmatch on Google AdWords often lead to lower quality scores? And my favorite, Broadmatch just got dangerous. But if you search now, you'll see a completely different piece. You search now, and search marketers like yourselves are starting to test Broadmatch, and they're seeing great results from it. And really, that's what we're trying to do in this webinar. We're not trying to change hearts and minds. You're going to have to see the proof in the pudding and do it yourself. So we are trying to urge you, and hopefully by the end of this webinar, we will have made our case that you should be testing Broadmatch. And not only is Broadmatch an important thing for you to use as a single tactic, but more importantly, it is part of the holistic approach to the new initiative from Google called Google AI-powered search. And when I first heard that, I thought, is this a new product like Performance Max or something? No, it's really just using three of the most important AI-powered capabilities of Google Search as the foundation of your campaigns. And that starts with smart bidding. Also came with a lot of skepticism, right, when it came out. Letting the publisher tell you how much you should pay for an ad. That's like walking into a restaurant and giving your wallet to the waiter and saying, hey, just take what you need and bring me some food. But look, we tested, we learned. Here at Skai, I get to see, the inner workings of hundreds and hundreds of search accounts. We know you're using it, and smart bidding adoption has just grown ever since it came out. And then on top of it, RSAs. Now, RSAs, that's a no-brainer, right? Google had always said 3 to 5 ads per ad group so they can rotate through and find the best one. With RSAs, of course, if you put in all 15 headlines and 4 lines of description, you get 43,680 variations. So that's a little better than 3 to 5. And then, of course, Broadmatch, right? That's the new key, and that's what we're talking about today. And I actually kind of think this is a little flipped. I'm going to have to send a angry letter to Google. But Broadmatch, I feel like that's the first piece, right? That's going to bring you into more auctions and better auctions with the new enhanced Broadmatch that we're going to hear about. And then RSAs, of course, that helped you put your best foot forward and the best creative to try to get people to click and go to your website and go to your apps from Google Search. And then finally, I look at smart bidding as kind of like the stopgap. So you brought in a lot of people, maybe people you never brought in before with the new Broadmatch. You've been able to get them, to want to the best ad in front of them. And then smart bidding is going to be there to make sure that if there is low value traffic, it's going to bid down. If you probably won't even make the ad rank formula potentially, or it's going to bid up if it finds those people good. So I think these three things together, it's a really cool, exciting opportunity for search marketers. It's the new page or the new era, and it's going to start with you testing Broadmatch finally, making a meaningful test with Broadmatch. And so I'm going to flip this, like I said. That didn't work the way I thought. But yeah, Broadmatch plus RSAs plus smart bidding is the new pinnacle of search. When we were thinking about this in the last year, we're like, we need to get more people testing Broadmatch. So we thought of the idea back in October of Broadmatch Week. This is fantastic, right? Get people to test. They can see the results for themselves. As we know, with a test, even if you don't get the great results, that's still great. That's still results. That's still insights that you as an agency person can bring to your client, or if you're a brand person, bring to your boss. But we soon realized that Broadmatch Week wouldn't give you folks enough time to really test and make a meaningful test. After all, you need to let it run a little while so it can, learn. And then you might want to make an optimization or two and really see what happens when you do that. And so we scratched out Broadmatch Week and we started the idea of Broadmatch Month. Well, then we had to scratch that out because we didn't want people to think this was a Google initiative. This is an our initiative. So we did unofficial Broadmatch Month. But we had to scratch that out because we liked it too much. And we went to copyright trademark of unofficial Broadmatch Month. Then we scratched that out because we didn't want people to think that it was just some no-name unofficial. It's us, Skai's Broadmatch Month. But then we had to scratch that out. So after many hours of deliberation, I'm bringing to you Broadmatch Month. And remember, it's not just for Skai clients. There's a lot of you out there that aren't Skai clients. Now, we have some great tools that you're going to hear about. Our clients success team can help you run those experiments on broad match, but there's a lot of you that aren't Skai clients, but you should be doing this yourself. Do a test in February. Use February as a way to test broad match, take those learnings and move on with it. And today, helping me to explain all this and give you all the details you need, we have first Oliver. Oliver, how you doing?
Doing well, thanks, JD. Hi, everyone. My name is Oliver. I'm a senior product manager for Google, working out of the Zurich offices, working on broad match and match types more generally.
And you might have seen them in the video that started the webinar. Lauren, thank you for joining me today. Introduce yourself, please.
Yes, hi, I'm Lauren Bennett. I'm Director of Performance Solutions at Rakuten Advertising. I've been in digital marketing since around 2007, so maybe not quite as a dinosaur as you, Josh, but racking up the years. But I've worked both agency side and advertiser side, so bringing that perspective to the table.
Hey, once you hit double digits, you're into the pro club. And another guy that's double digits, Mr. Mark Sherman, my buddy here at Skai. Please introduce yourself and tell us about your role here.
Yeah, hey everyone. I'm Mark Sherman. I'm a senior product manager at Skai. I've been with the company for about 8.5 years, primarily focused on our search offering. So I've definitely been along for the ride and saw all the changes that have happened. So excited to share with you some of the product solutions that we have that can complement Broad Match.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. You can go off camera. I'll bring you back in just a moment when we have you in. Let's talk about the agenda. So first thing, to know where we're going, you got to know where you've been, right? So we'll talk a little bit about the past. That's something Laura and I will share with you. And then what has changed? You've heard that it's bigger, better, smarter, faster, stronger. Oliver's going to help us and really kind of dive in deep. And there's a webinar he did with Google that is even deeper than. I'll share the link with you at the end. And then in the email tomorrow, you'll get a link to this on-demand recording as well as his recording. But if you really want to go deep, you can watch that one. And then we're going to bring on Mark. He's going to talk about some of the tools that Skai's developed over the years. Look, we've been in search since 2006. And we've developed a lot of great tools that are complementary to the Google offering. And just, it seems like we're on the same path. Like 5 years ago, we started some AI-powered tools, and it's like we've met each other at the middle here. And so Mark's going to take you through some amazing tools at Skai that let you really take control of broad match. Spend a little time talking about testing best practices. Y'all are smart marketers. We don't need to spend too much time on that. And then we will do some Q&A. So feel free to drop a question into the chat. And our friendly marketer, Dana, will reach out. And if you have any technical difficulties, feel free to use those in the chat as well. All right. So I said, let's start with the past. Let's start where we've been. The past. Here we go. So when I got into search marketing, it wasn't even Google I started with. It was what was the bigger search engine at the time, which was Yahoo. And their search offering was called Overture. And a lot of people think Overture really kind of helped pioneer this with Google. And at the time, exact match, or what we think of as exact match, was actually the default. The idea that, if somebody searched exactly, for what you were putting out, that was like the best match. And then eventually they brought out what was called Overture Advanced, which was phrase and broad match. Well, they realized very quickly that broad match should be kind of the default, and then you get narrow as you go. So they made that change, as you can see, back in 2004. So at the time, for us using Google and any other search marketing who had exact phrase and broad match, we would see something like this. Exact match, of course, lower volume, but incredible performance. Phrase match, a little more volume, a little less performance. And broad match, of course, great for volume, great for driving traffic, but performance. And I shouldn't even, these are a bit of a misnomer here. At the time, especially back in 2005, performance was off the chart. So this would be a super smiley face, this would be a kind of smiley face, and this would be just a smile. But you probably have seen this in your own work in search over the past few years. And it's important to understand match types and understand the value of broad match, because Google has been telling us for a long time that roughly 15% of the searches they see every day are new. And then there's a caveat, I think it's like 6 months or something, there's some time period. But I thought this was interesting. Last year, we saw people search for deodorant in more than 150,000 unique ways. So we're a good smelling group. And And so that's why it's important to look at broad match and really understand what value it brings to you. So at the time, because we really didn't have much visibility in what was happening behind the scenes with broad match, you would see what's called match type mirroring. And some of you maybe have the same exact strategy to this day, where you create a campaign, all the ad groups, all the settings, all the keywords, all the ads, and then you duplicate it and put one all on phrase match, one all exact match, and allows to give you some control and some visibility on what's happening a little bit better. But then 2007, that's where the game changed. We finally got search query performance search or search term reports, and we could actually see what queries our keywords were matching to. And that would help us understand how these match types were working, where we could use negative match or negative keywords, et cetera. And that was like such a big aha. And Lauren, you got into search in 2007. And what did you learn when you first got into search about broad match?
Yes. So when I was, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed and entered the workforce and started getting into digital marketing, it was a big, large X was through broad match. So try not to use it, avoid it at all costs, even never use it for some of our advertisers. I started at an agency. We were primarily focused on performance, and for the most part, broad match just didn't cut it. And us being hands-on keyboard, it was a lot of manual management back then. We didn't have smart bidding. We didn't have any automation. It was, if you add it, you're putting a lot of the tools or the control in Google's hands. And, back then it wasn't something that you would really want to do. But once I started getting trained up and really understanding digital marketing, paid search specifically, understanding the best practices for broad match, it opened up a bit, right? So, okay, now that I've got a handle on things, maybe we can use it a little bit more. Maybe I can find areas or ways that I can set up these broad match keywords for more control. It helped for new advertisers entering Google Ads that maybe didn't even have an account back then. So any kind of new account being built, it got the volume going really fast. Now that we have search query reports, we could monitor them. We can add negatives. We were adding negatives like crazy anyway, trying to control which ads were being served off of which match types because we had to bid manually. Things like DKI, don't use that, but use it in other match types. So it was all about segmenting your keyword match types appropriately via ad groups, or I've even seen it done at the campaign level. And then, so that was one evolution, right? So then we go into the second phase or evolution in paid search. And that is when we moved away from having to build out every single variation of every single keyword. And Google came out with an iteration of AI where now phrase and exact match can match to close variants, to misspellings, to singular plural, et cetera, et cetera. Prior to that, we had to build out every variation, and accounts got to hundreds of thousands, millions of keywords. I could really drastically narrow it down. Now, did this happen overnight? No, because once you're stuck doing it one way, it's really hard to get yourself out of it. So over years of gradually moving away from adding every misspelling of a brand keyword, it really led us into the next phase where Google unleashed broad match modifier. So broad match,
BMM,
BMM, all the plus signs.
yes.
Yes. So when that came out, I think everybody understood it, but it was, what do we do with it? Because it was meant to be this in-between factor of, okay, we have exact and phrase match. We don't really want to go into broad match. So what's our in-between? So these are examples of how it would work, what it opened up, and how we were able to use it. And really, what we did was we just added another layer. So we talked about mirroring before, same concept. It was all about mirroring, creating your formulas in Excel and just duplicating your efforts within your bulk sheet, uploading it all, and then boom, now you have to manage manually 3 different ad groups with 3 different match types, alongside all the other analyses that you would have to do behind the scenes across audiences, geo, demographics, etc. So then a sense of relief came over all the practitioners out there when it was like, okay, no more broad match modifier, BMM done. That was great for me when I was managing accounts, because now we're just cutting down the amount again. And using AI, you weren't losing, you were just cutting out more to manage. So less to manage, but
Yeah, I
utilizing AI to keep the volume up and the performance good.
feel like there was something great behind broad match modifier. Like it seemed like something special, but yeah, like you said, a lot of people just there were a lot of questions about it, how to use it, what it did. But I bet it was awesome. I just never got a chance to really figure it out. So, um, what happened with broad match modifier?
Yeah. So when it was going away, the messaging from Google was, you're not missing out though, because now phrase match is going to encompass that. So I think it's just the back end, the AI, it's just gotten smarter over all of these years to be able to recognize and know how to group. So these are examples of what was shared with us. So we knew there was a time and period where Google came out and they were educating us on people use the search engine to ask questions. So the back end had to start matching those questions to keywords, because we weren't going to build out keywords that were 10 tokens long. So the evolution of phrase match encompassing all of what would be traditionally matched to broad match modifier made all the difference. And lastly, what has most recently come out in 2021 is pairing broad match with smart bidding. So at Rakuten Advertising, we pride ourselves on being innovative, early adopters, early testers, and we have really grabbed hold of that. We've already been testing this for years, and we've seen some results that have been very positive, some that have needed some tweaking. And just over the years, we've been able to really dive in there.
Right. And once again, same slide here. That's really part of the new pinnacle of search, Google AI powered search, where you're using 3 very cornerstone or foundational pieces in your campaigns that are powered by AI, and all those great signals that Google has behind the scenes. Smart bidding, RSAs, and broad match, or broad match plus RSAs plus smart bidding. All right. And we've seen, case studies, of course, from Google about how well this is working. But as a marketer, of course, you need to test. That's the goal. It's great to see these things. And we've seen results even better than this here at Skai for people testing broad match. But we need to really get you to understand what's changed. It's easy for us to say, hey, do broad match and test broad match. But, here's where you're going to really hear from Google about what's really changing this. So Oliver, can you please fill us in on what actually all these changes are?
Sure. I mean, you mentioned a lot of it already, right? So I think, and maybe just to start off, like, I think you mentioned that you started using broad match a long time ago. I started with it around 2010, and my experience was very similar. But like Ginny said, right, like we have come a long way since then. And I think there are 2 main developments that have really changed broad match. One is that what you call a Google AI powered search. And the second is the exponential improvements that we're seeing in LLMs and sort of the understanding of language. On that first one, most advertisers today use smart bidding. They use some form of automated creatives. And of course, that makes sure that we're setting the right bid at the right time and we're setting the right creative at the right time. And that really enhances how broad match can function. But of course, there are also all these improvements in LLMs. You read it in the news every day. Gemini is the latest Google model that we're using. And if you go on the next slide, it really improves how we're able to detect what is relevant for each search. So if you have a search like how to text someone how to text someone without leaving evidence, we now understand that a keyword that is looking for texting someone anonymously essentially means the same thing, even though there's very little token overlap or like words that are common in those two. But we understand that the deeper meaning of that is pretty much the same thing. And it's the same for these other queries and keywords here. And so that really drastically improves how broad match can match to traffic. And I think you had a slide a few slides ago. You had the stat of like users who use exact to broad on TCPA see an average of 35% more conversions, and that is basically a result of these two developments in my mind. And it also has led to advertisers. Advertisers have realized that, of course. So today, around 75% of advertisers use broad match for text ads, and 62% use it even as their primary match type. And this stat is about 1 year old, so I'm sure there has been a lot of development in the meantime as well. But of course, we continue to invest and we continue to improve it. We're certainly not finished by any means. And so we talked to a lot of advertisers in the past 2 years, especially around like, what are the top requests? What do you need for us to make broad match even more successful? And there are a few dimensions along which we've especially improved it. So the top request is always brand matching. Like how can we make sure that it matches to the right brands? The second one is around prioritization within an account. So if I have multiple keywords that can match the same search term, how do you make sure that it matches the right one? And then, or something around performance, right? Like it takes too long for it to learn, or like there are certain things in my conversion quality that lead to poor results. And so how can we improve along those dimensions? And so I'll talk about a few improvements that we've launched recently to address these issues. The first one, broad match campaign setting with brand restrictions. So this was something that was heavily anticipated. We launched it mid last year. If you use broad match, a branded keyword on broad match, it can match to anything, even unbranded traffic or something that is with a different brand, right? Like you could have a keyword for American Airlines, but then it could match to Lufthansa, for example. There's no guarantee that it will only match that brand. But with these brand restrictions, you get that guarantee. So this is now the perfect home for your brand campaigns because it really restricts the traffic to only that traffic which contains that brand that you specified. But it also understands that there can be different versions of your brand. So American Airlines is not just American Airlines, it's also AA, for example, in certain contexts. The second one, AI-based prioritization, is also a top request. So if you and some advertisers refer to this as swim lanes, theming, routing, like there are many words for it. We use prioritization. So if you have two ad groups, one for flower shops and the second one for roses, and you have a search for roses for sale, it can match both under broad match. If you only have flower shops as a campaign, for example, it could match roses for sale, and that's a good thing. But if you have both, then you probably want it to match to the roses ad group. And that's essentially what AI-based keyword prioritization does. It ensures that we match to the right ad group to ensure that the right budget, target, landing page creative are applied. And so before I pass it on, just a couple of best practices that I want to run through. The first one, and this is by far the most important one, is a good objective function. So the system will optimize for your conversions. It will improve whatever you give it. And if you provide us with a great signal, chances are that you'll get great traffic under broad match. The second one, to your point earlier, it's not just broad match, it's also automated creatives, it's smart bidding. Using all of that jointly is really what makes it powerful. And the third one is essentially, again, around like, how can the system learn better? If you consolidate traffic, if there's a lot of traffic in a single campaign or ad group, it has more traffic that it can learn from. And so if you, the way I think about it is, if you use the same target or budget, chances are it's probably the same, should be the same campaign. If it essentially uses the same landing page and creative, probably should use the same ad group. And that will really help boost your performance with automation. And then lastly, and this is sort of the mindset shift that Ginny was alluding to in the video earlier. It's really about a focus on performance. It's a mindset change, of course, but moving away from managing individual queries and that may be very difficult to interpret without the full context is really important. And moving towards being data-driven and using performance is really the key here. And I think we'll talk about experimentation later on, which is essentially the point here. So this is just a short summary. You mentioned the other video, of course. There's also a fantastic PDF that I can really strongly recommend that people can take a look at to learn more about broad match and automation more generally.
I will send this link out in our email too, but go ahead if you want to give everyone a few seconds to snap this if they like. But yeah, that the Google webinar that Oliver was talking about, like I said, I'll put that link in the email tomorrow. It's a really fantastic one for people that really want to get deep in what Oliver was talking about. All right, let's talk a little bit about how we can help and how Skai can help. And like I said before, it's amazing how our roadmaps kind of converged at the same time. It was somewhat purposely, somewhat not. But absolutely, you'll see in the next few tools that Mark's going to show off that it really helps you with the new AI-powered search, especially with broad match. Mr. Mark.
Great. So I'm here to walk you through some of the Skai products that currently exist today for our partners. And whether you're embarking on your broad match journey or looking to maximize your broad match strategy today, these features are going to be helpful for anyone who's operating with a broader reach. So if we want to go to the next slide, the first area is our tool called Search Term Analysis. And essentially, what this tool is designed to do is automate and use AI to run search query reports. And as we're talking about, as many of us have been in the paid search space for quite some time, search query reporting, very manual with Excel spreadsheets and hundreds of rows of data. It was very time consuming, and this feature was designed to really automate that process and improve efficiencies for the team, and also for your paid search program. So if you are starting to invest more into broad match keywords, there is no doubt that you will start to hit a lot more queries that you may not have mapped to before, just given the nature of the match type. So this feature here is really designed to cluster those queries into themes. And from there, you're able to see the individual queries under themes and which ad groups and campaigns were mapped to those particular queries. And from there, you have the ability to add in keywords that are high performing that might not be currently in your account, or you could add in as negatives if these are high cost, high click queries that are driving traffic with very little return or conversions.
Yeah, I was just going to say, like, the real magic of it is the clustering, right? All of us could like pull a query report and like kind of look through it and see what's going on. But the fact that it can use AI to put those into the just handful of categories and concepts makes it super easy to just quickly kind of prune away things that aren't working and then actually highlight things that are.
Exactly. Yeah, you definitely can scroll through it and easily spot glaring things that you probably don't want to be showing for. So you could see what that theme is and then negate all the queries that fall underneath it. It's just a nice way to keep things a bit more organized and partition out as you go deeper into the layers of the query report. The next feature is called intent-driven messaging. This also is going to be relying on query data. And again, as you use broad match, you will probably mapping to more queries. What this tool is designed to do, it is taking AI into consideration to be able to take a look and analyze the queries that are matching to your keywords and seeing if these particular queries, categories, themes, topics that people are searching for exist in your ad copy where relevant. So I always like to use an example of, maybe you're selling candles. We see a lot of queries coming through lavender candles or lavender scented candles. It's an item you're selling, but it's not mentioned anywhere in your ad copy. This is an opportunity for us to be able to add that in as a headline or a description line to capitalize on intent and hopefully improve click-through rate and therefore conversion rate. The really nice feature about this as well is that every customer has a different ad copy approval process. Some are more stringent than others. And the nice thing about this is that we will never apply ad copy on your behalf. We will merely leverage it as a suggestion. You can apply that suggestion to the appropriate ad groups that we would recommend, or you even have the ability to go in and edit those recommendations in line so that maybe part of it works with your language, but maybe not, and you want to have it more native to your brand. You have the ability to edit it as well. Or maybe, you just don't like it and you can reject it as well. Totally fine. But it is totally customizable and you have the ability to augment it as you see fit. And the next, again, also with query reports, is a new feature called destination optimization. What we want to be able to do here is take a look at all the landing pages that you're currently running across your paid search program. And we want to make sure that we are seeing that the landing pages are matching the queries. So what we're doing is we're essentially making sure that between the search term analysis, the intent-driven messaging, and the destination optimization, we're ensuring that you're showing for appropriate traffic that's going to be efficient or at least relevant to your brand. We want to make sure that we are being able to serve the ad copy that's going to hopefully improve click-through rate and resonate with the market. And then third, which is the destination optimization, drive them to the landing page that's most relevant to the query, most relevant to the ad, and most relevant to the landing page. So with all three of these features within Broad Match, it's going to give you guardrails to at least test and be able to get some learnings as you start matching to these queries, see how the market is interacting with the ads. And from there, you can fine tune each of these processes to hopefully improve overall efficiency and improve quality scores as well.
Yeah, I was going to mention that quality scores. I mean, it's so important to keep your quality scores up. And these three tools, not only do they do what you just talked about, but they also can make sure your relevance is high, which has all those great benefits of being in more auctions, being higher up on the page, lower costs. I mean, all around, it's such a great tool. And then finally, experiments, right?
Yeah, so we're obviously a very data-driven group. We don't really dive into anything without looking at results or at least doing some variation of testing to make sure our strategies are proving to be successful. So within Skai, we do have an experiment feature. So I highly implore you to check this out if you are starting to invest more into Broad Match. This feature allows you to do either pre-post test, depending on the date range in which you decide to launch the test, or we do have the A/B testing capability, which taps into Google Drafts and Experiment. What's nice about this is that we have a full dashboard of reporting, so your over time trends, being able to take a look at different KPIs that might resonate more to you and your brands. But also we have the ability to create these all in bulk. So you can create drafts and experiments across multiple campaigns, across multiple profiles, and launch them to Google all at once. So this is an extremely powerful feature, and the beauty really amongst all four of these is that this all lives within Skai and they're all end-to-end solutions. So there's no need to have to jump into different platforms, go into Google for this, go into Skai for this. Within all three of these, you can do this all within Skai and make sure that you are spending your time in the platform rather than having to jump between different tabs.
Right on, or spend your whole day in a spreadsheet.
Yes, that's
Which
it.
I know, Mark, you love, but most of us aren't into it. All right. So as Mark said, that's a great segue into testing best practices. Once again, not trying to change your full opinion on Broad Match. It's a lot of that stuff's ingrained, but if you test it, we think you're going to see some good results. So this was out of that video, this was the line that kind of just, when I was watching this back in October, it just kind of a light bulb went off in my head. And what Natalie from Trupanion said, I'll read it, though I know you can all read it as well. But let me just say, over time, I saw that the development of automated bidding improved with all the different signals that you're feeding in. And then it became the question of like, if I trusted to manage my money, why do I not trust it as much to manage the queries I'm showing on? So I think that was like kind of the aha, because Broad Match, like we said, some of us have some bad memories of Broad Match and are skeptical. But hey, who thought we would have turned over our bidding to the publisher? Who thought we would turn ad creation over to the publisher? So, matching, it seems actually like out of those three, it seems like the no-brainer one when you think about it. Just some basic best practices. You know what you're doing, but just think about the test before you go in terms of how much, making it meaningful. So it's a big enough spend so that you can really see the results that you want to see. Decide, are you going to do an A/B test? Are you going to do pre-post? Are you going to use Google's tool, our tool, whatever? Structure your experiment accordingly. We can help if you are a Skai client. Our team will be there to help. We have a best practices guide on using Broad Match and testings that we'd be happy to share with you. And then eventually, of course, do what we do as marketers, which is test and learn. All right, Q&A. If I could have each of my panelists come on to the camera, please. All right, my question. I have a question because I'm such a big campaign mirroring guy. You kind of talked about with AI prioritization, but I mean, I just remember so many times duplicating campaigns and running them on each match type. And we thought we were so smart. I mean, we thought putting one keyword in an ad group was cool, like SCAD. Tell us, Oliver, tell us what advice do you give on dinosaurs like me that are stuck still on this kind of, let me just put all the match types in my campaign.
So just to be very sure, right? Like mirroring, you mean same keyword text, different ad groups, but then different match types or different campaigns even.
Yeah, just really the same campaign, just all the same ad groups, all the same keywords, all the same ads. It sounds ridiculous as I say it. But then yeah, duplicated for all the different match types.
So I think the same counts that I mentioned earlier, right? Like if you have the same budget, if you have the same target, why have different campaigns? If you have the same creative, if you have the same landing page, which in this case I'm sure is the case, why have different ad groups? And that would apply here as well, also consolidating traffic. I think there are some edge cases where people actually do use different targets, but if you use a good conversion action that doesn't rely on like additional logic in the backend, then you shouldn't be using different targets on different campaigns, is what I would argue. And that is the ideal scenario. So most people, like the best practice today for most people is don't do mirroring. It really doesn't do much except for additional complexity.
And I love the AI prioritization. Like if you put your brand terms on broad match, I mean, that was like a big learning for me. You put your brand terms on AI, even if they'll trump broad exact match, or they'll bring in more. That's wow, that's a wild big change. All right, I think Oliver, you had a question for Lauren.
Yeah, and if I may, just because I saw the Q&A, Cynthia has a question. Can I just jump in and quickly answer that one?
Please do,
So,
please do.
The question was if we're taking into account language or cultural regionalism, and that it feels like we're doing that more for English speakers than we do for Spanish and French. And so one improvement that I haven't actually mentioned was that last year we made a big improvement on languages. I think there's a continuous effort to improve languages, and with some of the LLMs, they start to learn across languages. So that is actually something that should improve materially, or has already improved materially. But we are very much investing into the different languages. It's not that we're mainly optimizing for English, but as you can imagine, like any trading data has more English keywords, so there may still be a slight edge towards English.
Right.
Yeah, sure. But I do have a question for Lauren. I mean, I'm sure, especially coming from your earlier slides, that there are many people who are still somewhat skeptical. So I'm curious, like, how does an agency roll out a test proposal to a client to test something like broad match?
Yes, it's a great question. As I stated when I was speaking to our methodology at Rakuten Advertising, we do pride ourselves on being innovative, upfront with our testing. So typically our clients are already accustomed to that. They're looking to us for testing ideas, thinking outside the box and being innovative. But even the video at the top of the webinar really accentuated that. If advertisers want to be data driven, then let's be data driven. If they want to be innovative, then let's be innovative. I think it's leaning into the capabilities now and recognizing that it's not how it was. SCAG, when you said SCAG, I just like I had like a flashback. So you could just tell all these different tactics, all these different ways that we used to try to get around and do better than what it could be. It is no more. It's more about leaning into what's available now and in a way selling that innovative mindset. And starting small. We still do have exact and phrase match, and we are testing into broad match. It is part of the evolution. It's not turn everything off and only run broad match. However, I would not be surprised if that is the end result one day. So, it's all about taking all of that in and being ahead of the game. Finding the findings. Every advertiser is going to perform differently. Every advertiser has a different level of signals. So it's taking all of that into account and continuing to challenge the norm, continuing to think outside the box and use the tools that we have. We've been partners of Skai's for over 10 years now. So all of the tools that they come out with, our team heavily uses to, you know, be innovative.
You know, I was an agency guy for 10 years, and I had one client turn to me, and I was, because I was trying to get us to test, and I said, well, let's talk to your boss, then the main person. And she looked at me and said, test is a 4-letter word at this company. So I know how hard it is, especially if you're an agency. But hey, just remember, like you said, if you want to be data driven, you got to be data driven. Lauren, I think you actually had a question for Mark, didn't you?
Yes, Mark. So we heard about all the Skai tools, but what are some best practices when using those tools and managing broad match?
Yeah, for sure. It's a great question. I know I touched upon a couple of different products and each kind of have their own nuances, but in general, the really great thing about this is that it all really relies on data sufficiency. So for what we recommend is that as long as you have at least 30 to 60 days, depending on the data and how long you have been living your data within Skai, these tools are automatically going to be running behind the scenes out the gate. So it's really just going in and checking and making it part of your normal optimization strategies to go in and see what the search term analysis is doing versus the IDM, experiments, etc. With that being said, it is also not a one-size-fits-all option. As you said, Lauren, every agency and advertiser is different and has different thresholds and different variations of success. So with that, I really recommend you either reaching out to your client success team to partner with to have you get set up, making sure that you have the settings in the way that's going to make the best use for your use cases. And I think within each of these features, I could probably do a deep dive on an hour each of these, so that would be an extra 4 hours. So which we don't have today. However, if anyone on this call is interested about learning more about each of these features, either reach out to your sales rep or your CS team. I'm happy to do a more in-depth explanation on how each of these work and what a potential good setup could be for your individual needs.
Yeah, don't tempt him. He will do a 4 hours on these things. I mean, these are his babies. He's the product manager in search, and
Especially
being the
after having a cup of coffee, it's hard for me to stop. So,
and speaking of which, I know you want to pick Oliver's brain about the roadmap. I mean, you're the product, anything that he can tell you, I'm sure, So what's your question for Oliver?
yeah, for sure. Oliver, as a fellow product manager, I know we're always thinking about what's coming next and what's on the roadmap. So I'm pretty curious to hear if there's anything that you can share with us about what's, coming up for Broadmatch, or if there's any roadmap plans that you might be able to share.
Yeah, I can share a few high-level themes. So, of course, in general, it's really difficult for us to keep up with the pace of LLM improvements. And so that's, I think, that the first thing that we're going to invest a lot in. Gemini was launched or was announced last year, and so that is still keeping us busy making the most of Gemini. There is also going to be a lot of focus on account structure and how you can consolidate, improve accounts. There was a question from Kyle that I'm also happy to answer, but around like experimentation. So a lot of people have questions around experimentation. How long should I run a test? And I don't think we yet have a lot of insights into that. And so that's also something that we're more and more looking into. And then I think the one part that also fascinates me a lot is like, how can we integrate even more with bidding and creatives? How can we exchange more signals? So those are some of the high-level questions. To Kyle's question specifically, it depends on a lot of factors. It's not about the number of days. It's about like how much conversion uplift you want to detect. It's about how many conversions you get. It's about those sorts of things. We're going to launch a lot of things that will help you with that decision. I don't think there's an easy number that I can just quote at the top of my head. But yeah, it depends on a number of factors. I would really look at the number of conversions if what you're trying to measure is the difference between a test and a control group and the number of conversions. Like if you get more conversions, then you should look at the number of conversions rather than the number of days.
Oh, Josh, I think you're on mute.
Yep, sorry, the dog was barking at the mailman. Thank you so much. It's been great. As I said, I will send out an email tomorrow to all of you with a link to this presentation video, as well as to Oliver's. it says 60 minutes, but it was an hour 15. So yeah, you can go really super in depth on this stuff. And also for those of you, once again, non-Skai clients, please test. Take February and just say, look, we're testing in February. It's kind of nice. It's the shortest month of the year, although it is a leap year this year, so you get an extra day. But just really, it's a good thing to test. And broad match month. As you can tell, we put a lot of thought into the title, and once again, not just for Skai clients, but if you are a Skai client, we have many things to help. As Mark showed off some of our great tools, as well as your client success team, they're ready to help you do this test now. And so just plan for February, and it's just a great thing for us to just remember that in this new era of AI, it's our job as marketers to really, not necessarily look at AI as tools, but look at them as colleagues. And what things should we be doing? What things should they be doing? And certainly when you're talking about, Google search, 8.5 billion searches a day, 99,000 searches a second, it makes sense that we're going to have to bring some AI to bear to get this thing done. Thank you so much. Thank you to my speakers. Thank you, Oliver. Thank you, Lauren. Thank you, Mark. And we'll see you at the next webinar. Cheers.